One needs to remember that when you're going through change, you need to say goodbye to the old. You sometimes need to grieve the old in order to transition to the new. Invitation of joining this, because I'm in the midst of contemplating my second migration. So it is, and I don't want to make the same mistakes that I did in the first migration. So thank you very much for helping me sit down and focus and put something together to share with all the listeners today.
So let me quickly put it out there. Chantel is contemplating her second migration. Wow. So it will be interesting to hear what you have to say.
Yes. It's hard. I must say, it may just be my personal experience, but it is hard. Other than having kids, this is the hardest thing that I've done. So on top of the introduction and the profile that you just saw, I would also like to add that I'm human. I'm perfectly imperfect. I also wear other hats other than being a management consultant. I'm also a mother of 2 monkeys. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. And I'm also a colleague. And it's when I'm having fun, the most fun I have is usually on any 2-wheel mode of transport, whether it has an engine or not. So let me show you what that looks like. I trust you can all see my screen. So this is when I'm having the most fun in my life. Is there I am on my bicycle, riding in our beautiful country, South Africa. So we normally escape the heat from Dubai and we come to South Africa. And that's where I find my joy. Now, the size of my smile is depicted by the fact that I am in front of my brother. So my brother is the bicycle there far in the distance behind me, and I'm beating him. So that is a little bit more about me, other than when I'm just an adult and doing the adulting things. And it was really great to see where everybody's from. I mean, even from Germany, that is really fantastic. And I'm also grateful to see what everybody's feeling right now in this moment. There's positive feelings, and I also saw some negative feelings, and many of the negative feelings appear that they are because of external circumstances. Just remember to not lose your power, because what you're feeling is a choice. So I'm wondering to myself, as I was putting things together for you, what is it that you are expecting to get out of this conference in the next 2 days? So there's a question for you to reflect on. What are you expecting out of this conference? What do you expect to get from it? And how are you going to benefit from that? And how is it that what you're going to benefit from is going to benefit others? Cool, because no man is an island. We have significant impact on others. Okay, so as I said, it's an absolute pleasure spending time with you today and sharing my experience. And I'm going to share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I trust that my personal learnings and knowledge that I have gained over the past 20 odd years will assist you to thrive in this ever evolving landscape we find ourselves in. So I'm going to be sharing my migration story with you. I'm going to be sharing with you the impact that I had in migrating, and then my learnings as well. But let's first start off in gaining perspective on the topic of the session: emotional fortitude in a migrating world. What does that mean? And I'm going to share with you what that means to me. So I trust. Emotional fortitude in a migrating world. Firstly, emotional fortitude. So emotional fortitude is the art of examining one's own thoughts and feelings surrounding a decision in order to use and consider those thoughts and those feelings themselves as inputs into your decision-making process. So I see emotional fortitude as really the courage, the emotional courage, and the willingness to feel uncomfortable emotions and feelings. That's what emotional fortitude, emotional courage means to me, is to have the courage to feel those uncomfortable emotions and those uncomfortable feelings and use them as a resource in your decision making. And when we talk about in a migrating world, now migration is an ancient phenomenon that started as long as the existence of human beings, where we've migrated from an area to another area for different reasons, whether that was food, whether that was weather, but migration is real. It's actually part of us. But what makes it so difficult for us? And why is migration so prevalent today? Now, migration happens, there's 5 types of migration. There is internal migration, where you just move from one town or one city to another one. There's external migration, where you may be moving to a different country within your continent. There'd be emigration, there'd be immigration, and there's return migration as well. But it doesn't matter what migration we're talking about, because all migration involves change, and it's significant change. Moving home is a significant change. No matter how excited you are to move from a 2-bedroom to a 4-bedroom house, it's a significant change in your life, because it's almost from stability to instability, no matter how nice and sexy it looks. So let me tell you my story. So it was over dinner on a very cold Johannesburg winter's evening in mid-July 2011. My husband announces an opportunity to move to Dubai. Now, you may find this entertaining, and all the ladies on the call, you would know what I'm talking about. At that stage, I was 8 months pregnant with my first child and about to go on maternity leave from a very enjoyable, successful job at one of the big 4 accounting firms. Now, in contemplating this opportunity to go to Dubai, I really wished I could have a glass of wine. But I was experiencing a roller coaster of feelings, the type of roller coaster only heavily pregnant women understand. There's fear, excitement, wonder, curiosity, sadness. And it just, those emotions became so overwhelming that the only option was submission to the following thought. Why the hell not? Why not just let us add another change while we're at it? So I was newly married, less than a year, pregnant, and I was moving. Okay, so 3 major big changes in my life. Lovely changes when we think about it, but experiencing it could be a different story. So the following months to January 2012, which was our departure date from South Africa, was filled with excitement and wonder, anticipation, love, and sleepless nights of planning and nursing. It was frankly a blur. Now, in January 2012, now I'm a daddy's girl. And one of my vivid memories of leaving was a moment our eyes locked. A moment in which not much was shared verbally, but a lot was shared just through that eye contact. We both knew that our relationship will never be the same, that I am entering a world we do not know, and he cannot protect me. Those are one of the lasting memories I have of saying goodbye. So, but being the adventurer that I am, I brushed off the feeling of fear and uncertainty and sadness, and I turned to curiosity. The first 3 months in Dubai was a wonderland. It was like Alice in Wonderland. It was fantastic. I was infatuated with the malls, the way things worked, the language, the different people from all over the world, the food. Oh, the food. The food is good. And I was also amazed with the cars, the fast cars and the fantastic motorbikes that you find there. And I was dreaming of how I was going to decorate our new home and all the shopping I was going to do. So for any of you that has been in Dubai, it's a shopping extravaganza. It's really fantastic. At that stage, the move seemed like the greatest decision I've ever made, an exciting adventure to stay on forever. Now, what I just explained to you is often called the honeymoon phase, where everything is beautiful and new and shiny. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to share the rest of my migration experience with you using the change curve, because migration is all it's about change. And the change curve is adopted from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief to explain to you my journey of acceptance of this change. One needs to remember that when you're going through change, you need to say goodbye to the old. You sometimes need to grieve the old in order to transition to the new. Now, the interesting part of all of this and this model is that I knew the model off by heart. But it was only at the second stage of this model that it dawned on me that I was actually transitioning through the model. So why didn't I realize it sooner, you may ask? Well, the honeymoon period was amazing. And I shared the amazingness with everyone I knew, almost convincing myself and others that I made the right decision. Thus ignoring the feelings I was feeling until they really knocked hard. So let me give you a visual of that change curve. Okay. Now, before we continue, please in the chat box, for those of you that have migrated, please share with me the top 5 emotions that you experience in that initial 6 months or year. And for those of you that have not migrated yet, but have had friends and family around you migrate, what were the feelings you were experiencing in the first 6 months to a year? So share with us in the chat box your top 5 feelings that you were experiencing.
So my friend, 2 of my very, very, very close friends, very close friends have migrated. Let me put my emotions. What did I feel? Lawrence said I felt happy for them. Diane Mon Abiola said anxiety, panic attacks, few times, uncertainty, fear of the unknown. That's someone hoping to. Nkechi said depression, loneliness, instability. These were my sister's feeling. Oh, she cried daily. Culture shock as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And for those that that have stayed behind, and I use those words very carefully. There's some aspects of you seeing, photos on social media, and there's some jealousy there as well that happens.
Right.
And FOMO, fear of missing out, kind of feelings that happen there as well. So thank you very much for sharing. Cool.
Let's ask that. That's a very powerful one, jealousy. So how many of you have felt jealous seeing other people, live in the country? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, life seems easier.
Yeah.
Life appears easier. A lot of the times I can remember discussion I had with people, yeah, but you guys ran away, life is easy on the other side. And you're like, no, it's not necessarily. It's hard. It's really hard leaving.
And
it's really, really hard.
No. One more person, Dave, says, feeling bad that I'm going to be missed. I'm going to miss my loved ones, family members, and friends.
Yeah, exactly. So let me continue and use this change curve to show you what I've gone through. Okay. So the first one, and somebody mentioned shock. And this is literally, after the 3 months, after the honeymoon is now over, there was cultural shock. I had feelings of uncertainty, of confusion, of anxiety. And those are, it's not comfortable feelings to have. And when the shock started to begin to wear off, I went through denial. I wouldn't accept the fact that I needed to change, to adapt to a new way of being, to a new way of relating. So I was persistently searching for places that felt like home, restaurants, cafes, fellow South Africans, places that I could just be me without effort. Places where my emotional brain was not constantly on fight or flight because of the uncertainty that it was experiencing. You would stand in a mall and somebody would walk past you and speak Afrikaans. And oh my goodness, I would run to them and like, oh, are you from South Africa? Just to speak to somebody that knows where I'm from. So from denial, I moved into what we call the phase of anger. So this is mounting frustration. It's the fatigue of not understanding gestures, road signs, the language, and often miscommunication happened. Small things triggered my frustration. Currency conversions, having to pay 3-4 times as much for South African produce, struggling to connect to the Wi-Fi, struggling to get water bottles delivered to my home, perceived incompetent rental agents, people not thanking me for holding the door open for them to walk through while I was standing with a baby in my arms. So these were small little emotional triggers that led to this anger. And unfortunately, the victim of my anger was my poor husband. Now, he would return from work and having to deal with his own shock, his own denial, his own anger, then got anger from his wife as well. I blamed him for my feelings. I blamed his company for not taking care of us, actually taking away my pain. So in retrospect, I was really in survival mode because I was becoming a first-time mother and I was in a new country with not much support structure. So in the survival mode, empathy was the last thing on my agenda. Empathy was the last thing I had energy for. And it was at this stage where I could see the tears in his eyes that I realized I was in the change curve. And it was this cognitive realization of what I was going through that gave me a sense of control. The ability to accept what I was going through. And the ability to know that it was okay. And I was needed. I was needing this curve. I was needing to go through this to accept the change that was going on. But I just needed to be aware of the impact that I'm having on myself and also those around me. So from that stage of anger, I had to go through bargaining. Now, this is a very interesting phase, and you might find it quite hilarious. But I was trying to hold on to hope and to prevent from the loss from happening, from becoming permanent. I felt helpless. I felt desperate. Now, I would bargain with my husband that for every year that we stayed in Dubai, I wanted a diamond. Now, I'm not even a diamond girl. Buy me a motorbike rather, but I insisted on having a diamond. And that I would want to go back twice a year to visit South Africa. So that's how I started bargaining with my husband. If you give me this, I will stay. Unfortunately, when I was in the bargaining phase, between that and the next phase, we came home to South Africa for a visit. And that may not have been the best strategic decision to help me go through the change, because it just made my longing even more. And made the pain that I experienced, the frustrations that I experienced, even more intense. But then from the bargaining, the next phase is the depression phase. So one of the ladies mentioned depression was part of it. I felt overwhelmed. I felt lonely. I felt hopeless, like there was little purpose in life and nothing of interest in the outside world. My emotions were very raw as I was finally facing the true reality. Our shipment with all our household goods arrived, and I would literally just sit and stare at the boxes, have no energy to unpack them. And those ideas of decorating our home beautifully and going shopping was out the window. Now, many think this is a bad phase. It is. It's a tough phase, but it's not a bad phase. It's a good phase because it means you've actually accepted the change. And then between depression and acceptance, which is the final stage, there's a lot of experimenting going on, where you slowly get energy to go out for a coffee, to meet new people. But I was jumping between depression and acceptance for quite some time and experimenting for quite some time. But eventually I passed through the period of depression and began to accept my perceived loss. This takes time. It really takes time. The pain eases. We can talk about our previous life and recall the past without feelings of devastation. Now, when you look at this curve, it took me about 18 months to totally get through to acceptance. It does not necessarily mean you will take as long. It doesn't mean that the intensity of these emotions may have been as intense as mine. Because remember, I had two 2 to 3 significant changes almost happening at the same time. And each of them had to go through each of these stages. Now let's talk about my impact. During all of this, I didn't really think of the impact my move had on the people I left behind. And I choose these words, left behind, specifically because that is what they told me it felt like. I remember hugging my dad on arrival on our first visit while I was still in the bargaining phase. And he cried. The shake kind of crying. And I've never seen my dad cry. So just like I was experiencing a void in my life, they were experiencing it too. They also felt shock, denial, anger, excitement, jealousy, especially when seeing pictures of reassurance that I sent during my honeymoon phase. They also contemplated existential questions while trying to mirror my perceived emotions of wonder and excitement. My brother actually joined us a year later to come and see whether he could move there and have the same experience. But he left 3 months later. So as I was trying to survive just on my own, be in a survival mode, other people were feeling the impact of me migrating. And I didn't realize that. So the feelings became so overwhelming that I went into survival mode and didn't see the impact I was having on my husband and my loved ones that I left behind. So let me share with you my learnings. I try to keep them to 10 learnings. First one, self-awareness is key, whether you're migrating or not migrating. But it is key in having emotional fortitude. Feel those feelings. Don't cast them away. Feel them. Acknowledge them. And accept them. Use your feelings as a resource. Use your feelings as a resource, yet what you are feeling is not necessarily the truth. Okay. Many times our feelings that we are feeling is based on past experiences. Be aware of the stories you tell yourself. And we do tell ourselves a lot of stories. And some of us are consciously aware of the stories we tell ourselves, and some of us are not, especially during the depression phase. Be aware of the stories you're telling yourself. Are they true? If you think they're true, do you have the proof? Are they valuable? Is the story I'm telling myself valuable in what I'm trying to achieve? And then flip the coin. I'm telling you, during my depression phase, I really had to flip the coin so many times. Flipping the coin means if my brain can think this, it can also think that. And this helped me move from pessimism during depression to optimism. Okay. So if your brain can think one way, it can also think the other way. Challenge it. Make sure that you've got clarity on the following: why you are doing what you're doing, Why do you want to move? What is the bigger picture? When you have clarity on that, when things become difficult, that's the only thing that keeps you on track. And have clarity of your expectations. If you want to migrate, if you want to go international, be clear of what it is that you expect. Then ask for support. Ask for support. When you're struggling, just talk to somebody. It's in the talking to somebody that your internal wisdom shines through. It's not about that person giving you the answers or advice. It's just about you hearing yourself, voicing what you're experiencing. And that's almost giving your internal wisdom the opportunity to help you figure things out. But also give support. Okay? Give support to the ones you leave behind. Or if you are left behind, give support to the ones that are migrating, because it's not all rosy, although social media will show you otherwise. And then lastly, during all of this, be kind. Be kind to yourself and what you're going through, and also be kind to others. Good. So that is my story in a nutshell. Do we have any questions?
Interesting. It really got to me when you talked about hugging your father during your first visit, and you cried. I mean, that's something,
Yeah, that was hard.
What dawned on you at that moment while we wait for questions to come in, if there are,
What did you ask? Sorry?
Did anything dawn on you in that moment, of giving that hug and seeing him cry?
Yeah, I realized that he was holding himself together for me as a father does. So he's been suffering for the past 6 months as well. And when he saw me, it's like a floodgate, you can't hold it anymore, and it just came out. What I also learned a lot about myself in that moment is not really embracing that feeling that he was experiencing, but kind of wanting to make him stop. It's okay, Dad. Don't worry, I'm fine. Instead of just feeling the feeling with him and sharing that moment together, because it was beautiful. If you think about it, it was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful moment.
While we wait for questions, so people would wonder, what do you mean when you say feel the feeling? Feel the feeling. What does
feel
it
the feeling. Just feel it. When you're sad, feel it. Feel sad. It's giving the feeling time and acknowledgement. When we don't give feelings time and acknowledgement, they persist. They build and build and build, and they will, show themselves in some or other way, whether that's physical, where you get headaches or stomach aches or IBS or whatever it is, it will show up.
What are the signs that would help you to know that, yes, I'm feeling I'm feeling the feeling, I'm not running away from it? What are the signs?
For me personally, is, as I'm sitting here, I probably need to share my view with you, but I'm sitting on the beach in South Africa, and there's the whale breaching. So I'm sharing this emotional stuff with you, but I'm also seeing this incredible wonder And it's like a realization of, wow, it just takes my breath away. And it's accepting that feeling and appreciating it for where it's making me focus.